what's that all about? I'm glad that I finally get to do this episode. I've had this one kind of on tap for a little while, but I wanted to wait until my Vatican Archives episode came out. I mentioned some of what this new episode pertains to, and it's exorcism. And it's specifically focused on man who is a legend when it comes to the art of the exorcism. Not sure that's the way you say it. The skill of, performing exorcists. He was the chief exorcist of the Diocese of Rome. His name was Father Gabriele Amorth. I'm sure that you've heard of him. and if you had watched my episode, my recent one, then you definitely have heard of him. So he, before his death in 2016, he was 91, by the way, when he passed away. Good life. He claimed to have performed more than 160,000 exorcisms, which you got to be one hell of a well-adjusted person. And I guess just to be the ultimate believer in faith. So he's a remarkable person, was a remarkable person, and his life really showed that. Now, as a side note, he attributed the number of exorcisms he performed to the fact that people he believed had lost their faith. And he thought that superstition and magic and Satanism, even Ouija boards, had taken the place of faith. And what happens when that occurs is it opens all the doors for the demons. And I will remind you of my experience that I had with the Ouija board that I talked to you about not so long ago. I sort of felt vindicated for some reason after this research, because I felt like less crazy than, not that I ever thought I imagined any of it, because I of course had my friend with me during my horrible experiences with it, but hearing him talk of, including the Ouija board in something so demonic, it was just really validating for me. But anyway, he offered the guidelines if you were to be someone out there, if there was anyone else who would be interested in becoming an exorcist. It's not something you can do just on a whim. It's not like I'm going to, go learn how to windsurf or something. You got to have, you have to be a person of the highest regard of faith, charity, humble heart, humble soul. Everything about your life needs to be around the Word of God, and it has to be traditional. It cannot be new age, new wave, new world, like anything. It's got to be the soul. Kind of, I hate saying it's like you got to stay like the old fashioned, keep it authentic, keep it original, the OG Word of God. So anyway, before he became a priest in 1951, he actually had joined the Italian resistance during World War II. He had earned a law degree, and he also worked as a journalist. This guy's resume reads like the what's what of careers, and yet he thankfully, God spoke to him in this direction. But in 1986, Father Amorth was appointed as the assistant to Cardinal Hugo Paletti, the chief exorcist of the Diocese of Rome, which he would later succeed. And in 1990, he wrote this book called An Exorcist Tells His Story. Now, he has many different stories of exorcisms that he performed. I have focused on one in particular, and you will find out why soon. But his book was a bestseller. It was translated into 30 different languages, which is kind of like the ultimate compliment to the quality and importance of a book. If they put it into that many translations, they want that many people reading it more in the world. Keeping that in mind. Now, around the same time, Amorth founded the International Association of Exorcists, who, as of note, there's a movie out now with Russell Crowe who plays the character Father Gabriele Amorth. And this Association of Exorcists, they're not too keen on it. But I mean, keep in mind, Hollywood can't just come directly at an audience. It has to finesse it, has to grab you, bring you in, and they add a lot of angles, colors, maybe a little bit more of an enriched storyline, so to speak. But the funny thing is that Amorth was a fan. I can't believe this, but he was a huge fan of the ultimate Exorcist movie, and I speak, of course, of The Exorcist from 1973. And he actually met the film director, William Friedkin, decades later, and he explained that he wasn't afraid of the devil. And he said that, in fact, he thought the devil was afraid of him. Which, I'm sorry, but that's kind of badass, right? I mean, to have the audacity to say that, you got to have some serious, like, spiritual balls, if you will. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I mean, this guy he was the real deal. So anyway, he also, in 2016, the year that he passed away, he did an interview with Vanity Fair, and he's quoted as saying, "Do you know why the devil is afraid of me?" He said, "Because I'm uglier than he is," which is not true. There's nobody uglier nobody uglier. The devil's the worst. But anyway, he also said that of the 160,000 exorcisms plus that he performed, he felt like about 98% of them really just needed a very good psychiatrist and someone to talk to. So he focused mostly a lot of his energy on the 2%, but he also said that exorcism could be anything from people needing a simple prayer, which could take place over a telephone. He did it over Skype. I mean, he really kind of moved with the times as far as, servicing people who really felt like they needed his help. He also said that exorcisms are not a one-time process. He said that some of them can be done within hours, some can be done in months, and then others are years until they feel cleansed of whatever is possessing these people. So he then came to a case in 1997 where he says that he came face to face with the devil himself. Okay? A young, slim peasant man was escorted into the small room where Father Amorth conducted his exorcisms, which was located away from any main population of the city, because the screams and the animations that come out of a human being during an exorcism can be anything from howls to groans to just blood curdling. You'd think that someone, which is essentially what is happening, is there is a kind of a torture going on. So anyway, brought this poor young man into this room, and as soon as Amorth saw him, he felt like he was confronted with evil. Now, he, on very rare occasions, said he felt that strongly about being in the presence of something purely evil. Okay? And Amorth said he asked Jesus for help, and the young man began to curse and spit, of course, and then he started to speak in English rather than his native Italian, which is really unsettling in the sense of just having the confirmation that he is really in an altered state. Something was completely controlling him. He didn't know English. So that's a little bit more to that. Now, his curses and threats were focused solely on Father Amorth, and then he began spitting at him and preparing to attack him physically. He could tell he was positioning himself, this poor, thin, slim young man, and he was screaming again, howling, and then the demon came forth with vengeance, looked at him straight in the eye, drooling from his mouth, and saliva was all over him. And he said he returned the fire that was coming at him with prayer and other ritual recitations, demanding the demon reveal his name. He yelled at the demon, saying, "Unclean spirit, whoever you are, and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the date, and the hour of your damnation." The man fixed his glare on Amorth, snarled, and said, "I am Lucifer." I just got the chills again. First time I read it, I got the chills. I got the chills again. He was shocked. Amorth was shocked. He was not prepared to hear that, yet he knew that for as long as his body could take it, he had to keep going. And it's telling for him to say that, because these exorcisms exhaust him. He is spent spiritually, physically, and I mean, he was older. He was not somebody who could do this all day long and all night long. Yet he said he did not stop until his body literally almost just broke down from complete exhaustion. Now, as the exorcism continued, Amorth used mostly prayer as his weapon, reciting verses of liberation from the Roman rite of exorcism. But the demon kept his hold, and the man, even making this poor possessed man turn his head. Think the movie Exorcist. I could have put something on as a picture. I refused. I refused to do that to you. His eyes rolled back, his head spun. I mean, it's just every nasty thing you can think of, this poor man was going through. And as Amorth continued to demand the demon to leave, the young man's body stiffened so much, he became completely hard and began to levitate. So 3 feet off of the surface he was on. Sure, it was a bed though. He was in the air. During this time, the room became so cold that ice crystals formed on the windows and the walls. Holy shit. Finally, after the man dropped from his levitated state into a chair, Father Amorth had to leave for the day. He was completely annihilated, exhausted. But he continued to visit the man regularly to pray with him. And when he finally sensed that the man was at peace, he asked him, "How did Lucifer leave your body?" And the man said, "He began to howl like never before. And then at the end of that moment, he felt light and new." So by the end of Father Amorth's life, like I said, at 91, he had helped discussions of exorcism really become more widespread in his home country of Italy. And even though the film isn't popular with his association of exorcists that he created, it's still another way to recognize his work in his life. I want to add one kind of strange thing about what he believed, though. It's a peculiar belief that he had, and it's probably more peculiar to me because I'm not religious. Okay, so maybe this is not so unusual for you to hear. He was at a film festival and in Umbria. He had been invited to introduce the 2011 movie called The Rite, which is also pertaining to exorcism. Not him, but the topic of exorcism. And he's quoted as saying, are you ready for this? He's quoted as saying, yoga is satanic because it leads to practice of Hinduism, and all Eastern religions are based on a false belief in reincarnation. See, I believe in reincarnation. Anyway, and practicing yoga is satanic. It leads to evil, just like reading Harry Potter. I don't think the word odd quite encapsulates whatever, how taken aback I was by this. I read it like 5 times before I was like, so it's not a meme. This is real. He really believed this. This is what he said in 2011. What I want to know is I want to meet the person who thought it was an appropriate time to ask him about his thoughts on yoga while at a film festival. What the I have no idea. I mean, shit. I don't love yoga. I can't get into it because I cannot get into the positions that they demand, but I certainly don't think it's satanic that I can't get into them. I think it's my lack of nobility, of flexibility or mobility. But yeah, so I thought that was kind of odd. I don't know. Well, I mean, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about that because maybe obviously there's something to it, but not in my realm of what I know to be satanic. But I hope that you found this at least I don't know, educational and kind of fascinating. And I mean, regardless of what he spoke of about yoga, he still did he helped a lot of people, over 160,000 of them to be, roughly that number. It's a lot of people, and that's a lot of dedication to a, I don't know, to other people's lives other than his own. So, anyway, I hope you're all staying happy and healthy and stay weird. Um, if you're doing yoga, just keep doing it. And until next time, take care. Bye.